Hello and welcome back to my second fantasy prediction video. My name is Alex does F1 Stuff, and today we are going to be applying a lot of maths and a bit of luck to the Bahrain Grand Prix. So as you are all probably aware by now, F1 did a cracking job with their virtual Bahrain Grand Prix last Sunday, which I did my review for and uploaded it a couple days ago. I'll pop a little card thing in the corner. And so to continue with the Bahrain theme of this week, I'm doing my second fantasy prediction video. So for those that haven't seen my first video, again, pop a little card in the corner, I did a lot of maths. I'm not going to say it all again, I'm just going to take the clip from my last episode and plop it in here. So for those that want to skip straight ahead to my prediction, the time will be on screen now. And for those that want to hear the maths for a second time, honestly, God knows why, or if you're here for the first time, watch the maths for the first time, let past me take you through it. Let's get started in the maths. So the first thing I needed to do was to come up with a way of adjusting each driver's single lap pace in a fair enough way that makes gains or reductions believable, and in doing so I created what I've called my single lap delta, or the SLD for short. So it's a sort of knockoff power rankings algorithm that will give me a value to which I can then adjust the 2019 driver's lap pace off of the session, so the practice and the qualifying sessions, to produce into my new tables. So I took 4 factors into creating my little algorithm: the improvement from the 2019 to 2020 test times, the tyres used in said test, the time itself, and then also the laps driven. So if we start with the improvement, I calculated the gain or loss each driver made. Loss is indicated by the little plus. Should have moved it slightly closer. Doesn't matter. Based on the value of the driver who made the most gains. In this case, Verstappen did. So with the benefit of hindsight, probably should have added an extra layer in, which I will try and do to make it for the next year's, but I've already created all the tables, so I can't go and change it for this time, unfortunately, but I will add that in next time. So the percentage of this was then the driver's score for their improvement or their reduction, simply the percentage based off of Verstappen. So next was tyres. Again, I used a similar thing, creating a percentage based on the C5 compound and giving them a score. And I've just realised this is an outdated table. Damn. Anyway, this outdated score was then made by subtracting the percentage from 100, then dividing it by 1,000. The real table that I've used, I've divided it by 100 to give the C4 compound a 2/10 gain, the C5 compound a 4/10 gain, with the C3, I've lost track, the C2 compound a 6/10 gain, in a progressive order like that. The actual 2020 test time was given more or less the same treatment here, but the percentage obviously goes above 100 as a slower time is equal to a larger number. So the score for this was calculated by subtracting 100 from my percent value and then dividing it by 10. And then finally, these for the single lap delta, the lap count. And it's very much the same story here, with a percentage being calculated from the most laps driven, which was Hamilton in this case, and then I simply divided the percentage by 1,000. So I know that there are many, many ways that I will change this in the future that I've picked up after creating this whole table, creating the tables themselves with all the data in. There are definitely different ways that I will change this, but like I said, I can't, as I've already made all the tables, and it would be unfair to change the SLD algorithm to then apply it to the Bahrain Grand Prix, which I will do later on. Anyways, here is the finished SLD table in order, with Verstappen and Russell gaining the most, with Vettel and Albon at the bottom. I couldn't quite squidge it on to the previous slide without making my table a bit too small, so I just put it on a slide on its own. Unfortunately though, this is not over for the maths. There is still another constant that I needed to calculate. So this one I call my race time multiplier, and this is a number used to times up the driver's race time to get a new one. So like the SLD, the RTM uses 3 factors though to create its value. but it's a lot more on the simplistic side, but it definitely does the job. The first step was taking the driver's SLD values and then giving them a rank from 1 to 20. I then divided this number through by 10,000 and added 1. The reason I added 1 was so that when I multiply out their race time, it gets larger rather than smaller, and it was just easier to work out in my head and to keep track of what was going on. Next was to take their qualifying position of the event and divide this number by 100,000, as I felt it didn't play as significant a role in the race as the driver's improvement from the year before. And finally, for the RTM, a random number was assigned to each driver by Excel, and this was divided by 1,000 to give the simulation of racing luck. The lower the random number, the better the driver's race. Then all these values were added up to give the driver's RTM value, which I would then times through their original race time. Hope everyone is here all good, whether you skip the maths or not. Let's get started with practice for the Bahrain Grand Prix. So, practice 1 opens with a good start from Leclerc, 2/10 clear from Verstappen, who gained 3 places from 2019, just over 2/10 clear from round 1 winner Bottas, who stays put. Vettel and Hamilton are next, 4 and 6/10 off Leclerc, and both losing places from last year. Ricciardo comes forward 5 places, with Gasly, Sainz and Ocon all dropping 1 place and separated by 2/10. Moving down the field, Giovinazzi, Grosjean, Stroll and Russell all bump forward 2 places to make way for Norris and Albon, who lost 3 and 6 places. Practice 2 is topped by Verstappen this time, 2/10 clear from Bottas, who has Leclerc close behind him in 3rd, losing a place on his 2019 time. Vettel and Hamilton are again behind their teammates and again dropping places on their last year's running. Ocon claims 6th ahead of Perez, who still continues to make the biggest gains from 2019, with 7 places gained this time. The 2 Haas are next, separated by 3 thousandths, with Sainz just 4 hundredths behind that. Kvyat is 5 thousandths in front of Ricciardo, Kvyat is P11, 5 thousandths in front of Ricciardo, who had a place drop from practice 1. Norris slips 5 places from last year to 13th, with Gasly and the Red Bull struggling to match Max's pace. Albon, Russell and the 2 Alfa Romeos are separated by just over 2/10 for 16th, with Latifi again rounding off the list. Practice 3, the session before qualifying, sees Leclerc claim top spot back, again just ahead of Bottas, this time with Verstappen in 3rd. Hamilton still can't get in front of Seb for 4th, as they both lose 2 places from 2019. Perez leaped forward 9 places from last year to 6th, with Grosjean, Ocon and Sainz all within 1/10 of him. Ricciardo comes forward 6 places for 10th, with Kvyat and Raikkonen dropping 1 each. Norris, Gasly, Magnussen all slip from last year and languish in the bottom half of the grid, well off their top 10 teammates, with the 2 Williams rounding off the grid, with Russell ahead of Latifi. Going into qualifying, it looks to be a 3-horse race between Leclerc, Verstappen and Bottas, with the Ferrari just seeming to have the edge over the 2. So let's get into Q1. It's topped by Verstappen, closely followed by Leclerc, with Bottas just keeping tabs on the pair. Perez in 4th, ahead of Vettel and Ricciardo in the Renault, who's had a nice turn of pace from practice. Hamilton is down in 7th, but easily makes it through. Sainz and Norris are split between the 2 Haas cars for 8th, with a very, very close battle behind. Raikkonen, Gasly and Stroll all make it through, separated by half a tenth between them, with Ocon just missing out by 400ths of a second, with Giovinazzi and Albon the same distance back from each other. Unfortunately, both Williams are also out of Q1. Moving into Q2, everything seems to be going Verstappen's way as he tops the session, with Leclerc in 2nd and Bottas 3rd. Hamilton clears Vettel for 4th, with Ricciardo ahead of Perez for 6th. Sainz makes it through to Q3 for the first time, and both Haas cars just make it through too, 2/10 clear from P11 man Raikkonen. Gasly is not having a good time in the Red Bull in 12th, with Norris, Kvyat and Stroll all behind him. Moving into Q3, can Leclerc snatch his first pole? Can Verstappen keep up his good form? Nope, it's Valtteri Bottas who claims top spot for the 2nd race in a row, with Verstappen in P2 like Australia. Leclerc has to settle for P3, with Hamilton firmly ahead of Vettel for 4th. Sainz is best of the rest in 6th, with Magnussen behind him. Ricciardo and Perez were close for 7th, half a tenth between them, with Grosjean 1/10 off in P10. So taking a look at the starting grid, Bottas and Verstappen come forward 3 places from last year, with Leclerc, Hamilton and Vettel losing 2, 1 and 3 places respectively. Sainz comes forward 1, with Ricciardo and Perez also coming forward a handful on last year. Moving down the grid, Norris loses out 4 places and Albon down in 18th loses 6, with the 2 Williams staying put on the back row. Who's going to snatch victory under the lights of Bahrain? What surprise results will be in store? And who is going to retire? Leclerc wins ahead of Verstappen and Bottas, who fails... no. Leclerc wins ahead of Verstappen and Bottas, who falls to 3rd from pole position. Albon had a charge through the field to P4 in the AlphaTauri car, with Giovinazzi in the other Alpha car, the Alfa Romeo, in 5th. Gasly makes up for a poor qualifying and comes forward 2 places from last year and 6 from his starting place. Vettel dropped back off the line but was well clear of Raikkonen in 8th, who lost a position from last year. The 2 Haas cars round off the top 10, scoring the last available points, with Ricciardo just missing out by over a second. Norris finished 12th after starting 13th. Kvyat also had a slow race, only finishing 1 place higher than where he started and 1 place down on last year. But Sergio Perez had another shocker of a race like last time out in Australia, from P9 on the grid to out of the points in P14, and also dropping 4 places from last year. Stroll stayed put on the grid, with Russell in 16th behind him, his best finish of the season so far. Sainz, Ocon and Latifi are all next, well outside the points and a long way off the rest of the field, with the only retirement coming from the reigning world champion of Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes. Taking a look at the fastest lap, Leclerc takes all the bragging rights this time out, just in front of Bottas, finishing off a very strong weekend. Taking a look at the championships, Leclerc gains the most of all, taking all 26 points available, with Giovinazzi and Albon both scoring big for the first time for their 2 respective teams. Lots of movements as everyone shuffles about, with Hamilton dropping from 7th to 10th, not the start he'd have liked at all, and Albon comes from 16th all the way up to 6th. Taking a look at the differences now, Bottas and Leclerc are all evens at the top, with Verstappen close behind. Stroll has a 24-point gap to get to them, with Magnussen and Albon matching his 12 points. Norris and Gasly share 8, Hamilton and Vettel share 6, and Grosjean, Raikkonen, Ricciardo and Kvyat round off the bottom end of the point scorers, with Perez, Ocon and the 2 Williams, and also Sainz, yet to score. Moving to the constructors, Ferrari gained big with 32 points, Red Bull 18 and Mercedes 15. The Alpha cars also gained double-digit points as well. All this means a lot of shuffling about in the order, as the 2 Alphas move ahead of Racing Point, McLaren and Renault. And then moving to the differences, Mercedes and Ferrari share 47, Red Bull on 36, 19 points clear of Haas, who have the 2 Alpha cars and Racing Point all within 5 points of their 4th place slot. McLaren and Renault are close behind, with Williams, who are yet to score, filling out the remaining places. And there we have it, the end of my fantasy prediction for the Bahrain Grand Prix. I really hope that one race in 2020 does go ahead, so I can actually see how accurate my algorithms and my predictions really are. Anyways, I'll pop another one of these out just before the next Grand Prix weekend in about 10 days' time. See you guys in the next one.